Okay, well, I will. State County Municipal Employees asking local 1124 negotiations meeting at the time and place is advertised. The first order of business is citizen comments, if we have any today. No citizen comments. We'll move to the active agenda, Roman numeral 3. The American Federation of State County Municipal Employees Local 1124 collective bargaining agreement negotiations. So, well, I guess for myself, good morning and welcome everyone, and hope you're here safe and don't take that for granted at all. I'm Cohen, I don't know about our wildlife population. Yeah. Nikki, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna turn it over to you because I think when we last left it, yeah, we'd already gone through everything. We knew we needed to circle back around on overtime, holidays and call out, and then, but there was discussion on COLA versus wage increase and then safety glasses. So did you guys, were you able to get any information on that?
I got some, I'm still waiting for Clearview to call back, but
For who?
Clearview,
Oh,
but single vision, which I don't know if people, anyway, single vision seems to be anywhere from 80 to say 100, excuse me, 125. Then, of course, and you could, I don't know, I wear progressives, but like my sunglasses are only wear. People who wear single vision and what,
so Nikki, could I ask that you just introduce the article and then we talk about something, so we know we're talking in the same part of the contract?
Sure, we're talking about, I don't know the specific article, but safety. 18, Article 18. And what we're considering is, prescription safety glasses. So safety glasses are covered by the city. But what they're asking is that those that need prescriptions are able to get prescription safety glasses.
and they did say that because of the material that the prescriptions are made out of, they usually last 3 to 4 times longer than a regular set of glasses. That's what I was told, but
So can you, just for my benefit, just tell me a little bit more about, these safety glasses, because I know I've worn glasses before that are kind of oversized, you know, so I wear them over my glasses, you know, and they kind of cover the sight and everything. Are you talking about something like that, hugs your eyes and everything? Type
Just like
glasses, just a regular glasses?
just like these, but safety. Because anytime
Sight
you
shield?
put, anytime, a lot of the jobs that we have, when you're in the moisture, you know, if they fog up, those ones you're talking about, you put them over your second set, they fog up and basically you can't see anything. So then you take them off so you can see, then you're just back to counting on your regular glasses to protect you.
So there's certain tasks you guys have to wear safety
Right.
glasses for, so I don't know if
Exactly,
you
yeah.
wanna emphasize what those are maybe for the
For
mayor.
what?
It kinda give them a few examples of tasks you would do that require safety glasses.
Spraying down our basins, weed whacking, dealing when we're filling chemicals.
So with these, prescription safety glasses, would they have the shields around them?
They'd be just like regular safety glasses, ones you,
Side shields,
Uh,
AMP approved.
I don't know if anybody has regular safety glasses on them today, but yeah. They'd
That's
be
got
like,
some.
say, yeah, be like pads for prescriptions, so they would
And
be,
not sunglasses.
so they don't have to be tinted, they could be clear.
That's considered a safety glass?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they wrap around.
Because it wraps all the way around your temples. And it's supposed to be able to take a 22 bullet, but I'm not about to try that. But that's what they say is that you can, yes.
You got a pretty good shot.
Yes, that's Andy's saying, there's something coming off from, something,
They usually hit unless
yeah,
they miss.
will hit with that power.
Yeah, I mean, there's,
I had a golf ball come off underneath a sweeper tire and actually go across the yard, through a window, across the living room, and leave a mark on the wall on the other side. So, and something like that, just pretty easy and quick, but that's why they want the safety, it's, you never know.
And face shields aren't always appropriate. I mean, we wear them. I know Chris and I wear them because we both wear prescription glasses, so if we're doing yard maintenance or weed whacking, we wear the safety shield, but you can't wear that in every situation, so.
Well, and one of the things that I know that I bring up during my flagging class and stuff, to why I recommend, the safety glasses, because you're out there, you got vehicles and stuff going by you. Those shields do not stop the dust from coming around into your eyes, but these will block probably 75–80% of the dust from getting into your eyes.
And I know in the past where I've worked, where safety glasses were provided, if you did not take your regular glasses off when you came to work and put those on, you were in violation. You had broken safety policy. So if you have safety glasses, you do wear them at work, end of story.
You just wear them all day,
Wear them all day.
like I said, they're your glasses.
And everybody looks goofy because everybody has side shields on, but that was policy and they were provided, so.
Take
Yeah.
anytime. So is the idea that there would be like an allowance, similar to like boots?
that's what I would say would keep the cost down for people going crazy, I guess. Cause you can get, if you can get a pair for from 75 to 125, it's basically. Hold on a second, yeah, because you had whatever the frames were, so, yeah. 100, I was forgetting that part, so 125 basically, is you gotta have the prescription part, just for the frames. So if you can get, say, 125 to 150 with the frames and that, you'd be better off than just saying, go get it and then bring us the receipt, because that way you kind of keep a control, kind of like boots, you keep a control on how much is gonna be spent.
Yeah.
You don't need anything fancy, you just need a quality pair of safety.
And I don't think it would be out of line to ask an employee who uses that benefit. Show me your prescription, show me the receipt where you got them. Because, I mean, we don't need people going out and buying sunglasses at, Clearview because we get a safety allowance. That's not the point. I mean, I know Pat and those guys who wear these safety glasses, most of those guys have 2 or 3 pair, they aren't that expensive, $25 or whatever, maybe they're a little more, I don't ever buy them, I've never worn them in my life because I can't see anything.
Well, I know back, I talked to Jake years ago, cause they were interested in it before. You'll get guys that wear their safety glasses, that wear their contacts, that when you're out in the dust, like, street sweeping, whatever. He said, then your contacts get dust in them, because those that doesn't protect your,
Yeah,
so.
Well, we do have environments where contacts are not allowed. AK the word.
Yeah.
You have our content.
Because of chemicals. That may have changed now, with the new plant, but hasn't all been addressed. So,
Do you know which groups require safety glasses?
Most of everybody.
Would it be
public
pretty-
works and
Oh,
parks.
Oh, just about everybody,
yeah.
Yeah,
custodians?
Yeah, there's some that they go out and blow sidewalks and stuff like that there.
Okay. So probably pretty much everyone except maybe like building permit reps.
Yeah, I don't know, they might wear them, if
If they're
they're going out on
inspections or
site, they might wear them for.
I don't think they leave
I don't
the
think they'll
office.
leave those.
Oh,
But probably your engineering, some of your engineering
Yeah,
techs maybe.
yeah.
I can
I
see
know
Doug- I can
Iris
see
will
Doug-
be-
Well, I know Duggar's out there in non-prescriptive, I don't think he wears glasses either, I don't know.
Yeah, he does, he wears that.
Oh, he does.
But like Katie,
Katie, yep, she would
Okay.
use them. Corbin would use them.
okay.
I would say anybody who wears steel.
Corbin always has.
Probably
safety
Okay.
needs,
I was just
Either
mean in case we kind of
non-prescription
wanna
or
like
prescription.
estimate the rough cost. of it.
Right.
Let's say everyone needed a prescription.
Say, right, yeah, it goes from probably 50%, maybe, but.
Some might not need it for a while and then start to need it.
As they get
Hey,
a little- as they get a little older.
Yeah.
Hey.
But
Or the
we
one.
wear these things.
I remember the day
Like,
when,
don't need glasses, but you look at their phone and their text is like that, 2 words on the page.
Well, like mine, I have the LASIX and they said as I get older, that's liable to have to come back to reading glasses.
Mhm.
it doesn't last forever.
Well, you tried it.
15
Or at least
years.
readers or something. Okay, well, I think that gives us something to consider, to discuss. And how that might work with finance. So that's good. You guys ready to move on? You wanna talk about like wages? Is that, I
Well,
see
we
Laura
worked,
preparing down there for.
yeah, we worked on Article 11,
Okay,
which was the
okay.
holiday pay, or excuse me, Article 12 for
Okay.
holiday pay. And I got really confused, so hopefully you're not the only one.
I know. Well, you're trying to figure out every instance, like every situation that could come up, because they're all different.
So I included Article 11 in the printout that you have, just because I made a note for the overtime, because I didn't wanna like forget that that might need adjusted once we figure out the holiday article. So we start on,
And I just made some simple definitions here, I'm not saying they're right or wrong, it's how it's
how
interpreted.
you interpret it.
Yeah, it's out of the contract and the policy. Because there seems to be, we try to get how much.
I feel like I can smell cream. It might be, yeah, it smells like hazelnut cream.
Oh, it does.
Oh, it's hazelnut coffee. Smells good. Thank you for taking notes. So we start on page 16. I put a little very brief description of what we are looking for. So basically, to summarize it, is we want all the employees to be compensated for the holiday. Whether we call that like straight holiday pay, but they're compensated for that holiday, whether they work it or not. And then any work actually performed on that holiday would be paid at 1.5 times the base rate of pay for the employee. Scheduled pay, sorry, for work performed. And then a call out or unscheduled change on a holiday would be compensated at 2 times the rate of pay. And then this straight holiday pay or the holiday pay would not be included in that calculation for compensation. And then, we want to define the holiday as starting at 12:01 a.m. and ending at midnight. So I try to go through the article and adjust it to reference that and include some of the items you guys had in there. I don't know if we want to just rewrite it all, or I struggled with this for quite a while, trying to understand it and clarify and clean it. So I did have a question on page 17. For the language you guys had added in for regular part-time employees. In that you had a sentence in there that part-time regular employees may need to supplement their holiday pay with vacation in order to receive pay for their regular hours on that day of the holiday. That didn't make sense to me, so could you kind of I guess my mind is, you get a prorated employee, you work 5 hours a day, you get 5 hours of holiday pay, so what? I guess I didn't understand that.
We prorate it to the FTE, so if it's like a 75% FTE, so they're only working, what is that, 32 hours?
Mhm.
Then they get it prorated, so they don't get a full 8-hour day, they get prorated to the 75.
Mhm.
But depending on the schedule, the day that falls on a holiday might have be like an 8-hour day, because it might flex.
Oh,
And
okay.
so what we're saying is that if that were the case, you'd get your holiday prorated,
Mhm.
and if you wanted to supplement to get the full 8 hours, you could use your accrued leave.
Okay.
It's how we treat every other part-time.
Yeah, I can actually, I'll use myself as an example, so I actually work 32 hours a week, so I'm a 0.8 FTE.
Okay, yeah.
So on a holiday, I get 0.8% of a normal holiday, so I get 6.4 hours of holiday pay on a holiday.
Mhm.
And then if I wanna make it a full 8, I have to supplement it with 1.4 hours of vacation.
Okay, okay, yeah, so we can add that back in, I just wasn't understanding it, cause I
It
have
is
other ones.
confusing, but that's,
If you're,
and that's how we do it for
You guys
part-time
don't have a
library.
lot of part-time
That whole
employees?
How many people
Yeah.
are there that are?
You have one right now.
Oh,
I didn't know if you have.
Well,
But you-
we had a,
Oh, yeah.
parks.
Yeah, we did at one point have a part-time parks laborer.
Yeah.
And then you do have a part-time custodian right now. a
Kind of like the
34-hour.
arborist, right? Was
Yeah.
part-time. So you don't have a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often.
Okay.
But that puts it in line with every other, and it really just didn't address it, so we probably would have done it this way anyway, because it would have referred back to the personnel policy, but it clarifies it in there.
It's
I
just
don't-
clarify.
It's
like
literally
you.
copy and pasted from the personnel
you
policy.
guys have any issues with that
Exact
then?
language.
Okay, so yeah, that part, that sentence can be added back in. So yeah, then I kind of just tried to go through that article and adjust it to kind of my summary.
Mhm.
I don't know if I did it justice. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but if you guys are in agreement to that, then, you know, if you want to work on the language together or scrap it and start from scratch, we're okay with that.
Well, just so I make sure I understand, so
I mean,
you get the holiday for the shift,
Mhm.
and then if you're scheduled to work that day, like water plant might be,
Mhm.
right? Then you're getting 1.5 times the hours worked
You're getting paid for the hours actually worked that day.
at time and a half.
Time 1.5, yes.
But if you're called in for call out on a holiday where you're not regularly scheduled, but you're maybe on standby
Yeah.
or called in.
Yeah.
Then you get 2 times your hourly rate,
Yes,
separate from
the
the day of the
holiday,
holiday.
yes.
Doesn't matter what time of the day, or you're just
Right.
getting double time.
Yeah,
Right.
from midnight or
Okay.
midnight to midnight pretty much. For 12:01
And that would
AM,
be a call out or overtime situation.
right? Did I maybe step in and explain it better if you need to?
No, that's,
Oh,
I
okay.
think,
Okay, well, that gives us something to consider and come back. I think our initial language was to treat a call out like a call out, at that time and a half. Avoiding this kind of 2 times the regular pay, but we can talk about it in like a caucus. If you guys wanted to maybe talk about wages too, and then we kind of have 3 topics to caucus on, does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's fine.
does that sound, you're leading there, so you tell me what you want to do. Okay. So yeah, we can consider that. Did you want to talk about overtime and how it reflects on that?
Well, I
Or-
didn't really look at that whole article because, but maybe I'll let Ryan kind of take over because like I said, my mind was trying to understand it.
So you're wanting to add, okay, so you want
Well-
to keep Sundays.
Well, yes, we want to keep Sundays. I just didn't want to lose track that we need to reference how overtime and Sundays would work. But I'm assuming, are there any holidays on Sundays? Well, there could be
There can
because
be.
4th of July rotates.
If it's a holiday and a Sunday, it's just either of them. You don't get both, you just get
Right.
one. I mean,
it would
it's
be,
just a holiday.
it'd be, yeah, it'd be paid the same, because the holiday and or a Sunday, it's recognized by the city on a Monday. That doesn't pertain to those working or scheduled. So to me, it comes down to, to the work groups, it comes down to, some people are just scheduled to work holidays. It just happens. Right now, there is no compensation above or beyond anybody else who's not scheduled to work that holiday. That's a scheduled holiday, that's accepted as part of our goals. In an overtime situation where you may need to cover a holiday for somebody who's gone or who has left the city or is sick, we recommend that being as double time. You're interrupting your schedule, you're interrupting your holiday, but somebody's gotta cover. Not unlike a Sunday, again, we talked about Sunday being that kind of sacred day for families. It always has been paid at twice the rate of pay, and we would just like to see an unscheduled holiday paid at that same rate. It's just, it's an inconvenience. Somebody is going to have to do it, but it is an inconvenience. It doesn't happen very often. Those departments that do work 7 days a week, speaking from my own experience, our schedule is out for a year. We know what we're going to work. Again, barring some emergency, somebody being gone. And sometimes with enough notice, we just shift our schedules. And that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you're just, hey, you gotta work it. And it is what it is. So we feel the compensation is fair in that situation. I think that's where we're coming from. Would you agree? I use the example last time, 40-hour work week for us, 4 10-hour days. If the holiday falls on that 5th day, that person's getting compensated for 40 hours straight pay plus the holiday pay that everybody's getting. Versus somebody who's working Tuesday through Friday, they're getting compensated for the exact same amount of 40 hours plus 1 holiday, but they're actually having to work a holiday and not have a 3-day holiday weekend or however it breaks down. So we feel that time and a half compensation on a holiday having scheduled work was fair.
Yeah, because right now the current practice is you get your holiday straight pay, and then the hours, if it's scheduled, you actually work on that holiday are paid also at straight pay. So we feel like, you're taken away from spending time with your family, celebrating the holidays. So that should have a little extra compensation of just instead of the straight pay. And then not tacking in the holiday pay on top to equal the double time, because everybody gets that holiday pay whether they work or not. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm
And
explaining it.
it's not a lot of employees. There's a handful.
It's just the two, well, unless there's but that's scheduled. Your guys' roads, you're not scheduled, so yeah.
Ours is.
So
it's just
basically,
water
it's
and
water,
sewer.
wastewater.
Yeah.
Yeah. The plants, basically. That have to, so. I think that was our only targets.
Oh, do it, oh, water. Okay, I also, we're ready to move, went ahead and, because we kind of talked about the CPI and the COLA. So, I went ahead and, just kind of did a little chart on the CPI, because I know you had said you had done a calculation, the average was 2.2. Going from 2015 to current, the January through March average has actually been 2.79. The full year average was a little higher at 2.89. And when you average that out from what the employees actually received, that's for it was 1.97. So that kind of references why we were asking for the min and max to be adjusted on the COLA.
I don't know where, I watched the city council meeting last night, I don't know where Bob got his numbers for the city council, the COLA 2.5, but, yeah, I think he had some paperwork on him, but I know that was brought up last night.
There was a compensation review committee.
Right, that was
He-
Bob,
yeah.
like, yeah, that's what they talked about.
for
Even
city
though
council.
a yearly raise plus the 2.5%. The mayor probably knows more than I do. Yeah,
Well, it's the same COLA language that's in your contract currently.
what Bob had last night.
That's what he was using, because it's the same
Like
total
you-
language for all.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was with the min and max.
He was referencing the max, because that's
Oh,
what it
okay.
currently is.
Yeah, so it sounds like he was using the 2.5 that is proposed for this year. Is that what you're saying, Amy?
Yeah,
There's that, thank you.
That's all I had for now. So you said earlier to caucus and talk about the wage adjustment, what was, you had two things.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, it's still the request to adjust the COLA, but not look at the wage matrix?
Wanna look at the wage matrix.
We haven't got that far yet,
Okay.
but possibly looking at the wage matrix.
So you'd wanna do the COLA at 2.5 to 5 plus do a wage matrix increase?
We kind of talked about that earlier. We, are not opposed to making an adjustment to what we presented and adjusting those min and max. But we kind of want to have like 2.5, the midpoint of that min and max. So we'll have to, I don't want to speak and say something before I talk to the team.
Yeah,
So
yeah, of course.
we can.
And I don't know. I don't know if your intention or your intention is not concentrate so much on the COLA and more of a salary adjustment. That's the impression that I'm getting over here, but I don't know that. And I don't think do we have a preference? I mean, I just think it needs to be addressed
Mhm.
one way or the other.
Yeah.
Well, at least for year 2 and 3, adjust that and then maybe look at just the year
Yeah.
1 adjustment.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, like I said before, the whole thing that the COLAs are good, you should get COLAs, yes, every year, but. So like I was saying before, at 2%, a $50,000 employee and a $100,000 employee, that's a $5,000, not 5 years, it's $5,000 difference that those two will have gained. So, I mean, is it 5 years, $50,000 year employee will get 5,000, $100,000 year employee will get 10,000, and COLA adjustments basically.
Yeah, I think it's just a way of looking at it, because, I don't wanna speak for the city, but I mean, I'll speak for my point, is that, we've worked really diligently to work with the city council and all employee groups to get it in line to be the same and fair. And I personally feel like changing that would move back to this idea that you get a 2.5%, they get no percent, they get 5%. And then that becomes even greater depth of unfairness between employee groups. And, you know, we've talked a lot about CPI year after year after year with every employee group, and we kind of always come back to the same 1 to 2.5%. And we've seen with employee groups where we can go back that 20 years, and by staying consistent on the COLA, come to a consistent, fair rate of pay, not be over or under, by not reacting to these anomalies and just staying fluid. You know, I personally feel like that would go against everything that we've worked for since 2017. And that I think was a particularly difficult year, because that was one where some employee groups got 2.5%, some employees group at the last minute got 0.5%. I mean, the depth of difference.
I'm not suggesting that we give different COLAs, that's where I'm saying that doing the COLA, say you do that the same, but you have some kind of wage adjustment in there.
Well, so that's what we were saying
Right, yeah,
last time.
to shorten that gap. No, I'm not,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm sorry if that's the way you understood me.
Well, yeah, because I was understanding that you guys were still wanting to keep it the 2.5 to 5% potential.
Well, I'm speaking for all of us, we haven't talked yet, I'm just saying, yeah, if you have a COLA, that's one thing, but I don't want to say like,
Yeah.
we get a 5% COLA and somebody else
Yeah.
gets a 2, that's not what I'm saying at all, so. if that's the way it was understood.
For the wage adjustment and doing that, could we agree upon comps to use for that? As a group, that way we're not with one group and you're looking at something else, that maybe we could agree on what comps we would look at and employers to do that wage adjustment?
I know kind of in the past, the feeling's been that we don't necessarily compare ourselves to others, but what works for city of Lewiston and what's within budget. Also within Idaho, you know, what are our similar city size? I don't want to speak for you there, so.
Yeah, no, I think
Try to be
that's,
sensitive
I
to,
think that's, I think that's an accurate statement, because that's what I've shared with other groups too. And I, in fact, I have shared that early on in the discussions, is that, personally, when I look at this, I don't spend a lot of time trying to compare myself or what the city does with others, because you're always gonna find somebody who pays more and somebody who pays less, or somebody who's greater and somebody who is lesser. And what I've tried to do when I visit with the representative groups is my job is to look across the city. And so I'm looking at being sustainable. The city needs to be sustainable and it needs to be equitable. And so when we talk about issues, for example, like safety glasses and stuff, so when you see me looking at you like I'm staring off into the distance, I'm trying to think about the whole city and how we apply that type of policy, because it wouldn't be just this group. I have to look at other groups too, who would say, well, if it's good for one, maybe it's good for everybody. So these are the kind of things that I have to think about. You know, it's not that I'm against it, it seems to make sense, you know, but crafting a policy that is one that the city can afford, it's sustainable. We don't give it to you one year and then the next year say, can't do it anymore, you know, type thing. So with the COLA, as I understand it, you know, that's been a long discussion at the city. I think it's reasonable to treat the employees all the same. Here's mins and max. And they do tend to average out over the years, so we've seen that. And then with the comps or doing anything like that, you know, I'm always open to looking at information, you know, but then how do you use that information? And understanding what the assumptions are behind any information that you use. So, you know, information is good. I'm not worried about that, but I don't know if I'm gonna take a strong position to say that we should be like somebody else, you know. And it'll be a package, it's a package deal anyway. That makes it hard sometimes to isolate just one variable in compensation. You know, you have to look at the package and say, well, they're higher in one area, we're higher in the next, so. But I'm certainly not, I'm not worried about having that discussion, looking at that, you know, but then what do we do with that? So,
Yeah, I mean, to go on the discussion we're having of, you know, keeping the CPI the same against all employees, but then you say, you know, wages, I mean, at roads, they can't keep employees, as Pat said, it's a training ground, it's a revolving door. So evidently, you know, you'd suggest maybe a wage adjustment needs to be done, but in order for us to look at wages and compare those to see if it's equitable, we need to agree on comps to do that. Because we don't want to present one city and then you're like, no, that doesn't qualify. So if we could agree on a list of 5 or something, you know, because yes, there are gonna be some hires, there's no exact match, but it can at least give us a tool or help to prove that, yes, a wage adjustment is needed, no, one is not needed.
well, again, I'm just saying giving you my personal bias on it maybe, because still within the structure, the budget of the city, if we said, okay, we found it where, you know, street techs are making twice what we're paying here at Lewiston, so we said, that's what we're gonna do, we're gonna double everybody's salary in streets. It's a give and a take. It means that we're gonna have to cut somewhere else. It's just that simple, because we are not gonna have the capacity in our budget, even if we took the full 3% every year for the next few years, we're just not gonna have the capacity to meet all of the demands of the city and the demands of the employer groups. It's just, the budget can't grow that quick, just won't happen.
No, and I realize there's budget constraints to that, but if we do find that one department or multiples are underpaid, you know, there's a tiered up structure we could do to bring that pay around. I mean, right now, how much is the city using to train employees and have them leave within a year?
Well, this is just, oh, sorry.
No, I understand that, but, you know, this is happening everywhere you look, you know, it's just a real funky work environment right now. People stay because they enjoy where they're at, we know that, you know, and, you can't thank people enough for that, for the dedication and the time that they spend here. I recognize that, you know, but we just have to get into it, have the discussion, talk about it. I know last time we went through this 3 years ago, and I don't think everybody in your group benefited the same, you know? You know, and that's kind of like, ouch. But that's a true statement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but with that, you can have one job that's underpaid and one that's over, you know, and if you're looking at specific jobs, which is my understanding that that study did look at each individual job.
One thing, I was thinking about, I'm not speaking for the group, but is it possible for you to take a look at your pay grade and see if the positions are appropriately placed? Meaning you have your custodian at the very first grade. You have streets at a lower grade than you have operators. Does that CDL and change in requirement create more value to maybe reflect, you know, your operators who have certs? And now you have the CDL component. Is there a consideration to maybe use your existing skill to look at moving streets and traffic to a more desirable grade?
How many applications, when a job is posted in streets, how many applications are received usually?
Let's probably look.
I'm just curious, like, or is it hard to even get applications? I know last time you.
I think it's
talked-
hard to get people with CDLs.
It's not hard to get applications, yeah, it's hard to get anyone who has experience for the CDL.
And like with traffic, it was hard to get anybody who had worked on lights
Who had any application.
or
any
lights
experience.
boxes, you know,
Specialty job.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
If I remember right, just talking with Jake, the last time in streets, I believe they had 6 viable applications.
With actual CDLs.
Well, no, it didn't even have the CDL, but they were viable in all the other sections
Oh,
and
okay.
stuff. You know, when they broke it down, I don't know how many total applications they had, but they said viable, you know. I'm sure they had a lot of applications, you know, absolutely no experience, you know, we get those quite often, I believe.
because we could, you know, take the scale and future forward, give it the 2.5% COLA that we're anticipating. And then take a look at each of the grades and see if maybe, does it still meet, you know, the min and max of that position? You know, we did that with positions within your union individually. So knowing that, you know, I see applications come in for wastewater collections, that doesn't seem to be an issue. We don't know water plant yet because we have to post that. Out of the group, the hardest I think to fill have been streets, traffic and custodial. And so I don't really see in our recruitment, you know, issues with other departments, building permits, we've been able to fill. Parks, we've been able to fill. So what I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not necessarily saying you have to do this, but I'm just saying, what if you took those positions that you know might be more difficult to recruit for, potentially because they're underpaid, and see about moving them, you know, not drastically, right? Because each grade is gonna have a percentage increase, but maybe you move custodials up one. You know, I think the minimum pay right now is 1561 or something.
You can go across the river and, so, yeah.
And so maybe you look at traffic and streets and say,
So
no,
Nikki, when you say
So
we look at, are you saying we as a union, or you as a city? Or we
Well,
as
I
a
think-
combined
I
group?
think we do it and you do it.
So can I add to that, you're saying about applicants? I know in the past, say, we hire a water treatment operator with no experience. So you can you come in, get your license within a certain period of time. You have, say, 25 applicants. last time we put on there specifically to hire level 4, we had one applicant, which was Ryan.
We've done that twice.
So
And
yeah,
both of
we
us
did-
came from out of
we
town.
tried again after Ryan, and we had 0 level 4s, and I think a couple 3s apply, so they had to knock that down. I don't know if you remember, you had knocked it down, and you had to hire somebody without a license.
Yeah, no, I know the license certified
Yeah.
in Idaho are diminishing. And I think we went to a conference a couple of years ago and it said 55 and over was like 50% of those with cert. So I understand what you're saying.
Right, I'm just saying.
I will say collectively, on all of our positions, union or not,
Mhm.
I mean, when I got hired, I think there was 80 some applications for my initial job. Now we'd be lucky to get 30, 35. I mean,
Yeah.
all positions have reduced.
Right.
Some more difficult than others. So I don't want to exclude that out of context, but I think also, you know, specific skills. When I look at the water and wastewater, and I don't want to overspeak, so tell me to shut up here if you want me to. You know, you guys have that potential for that extra $2 an hour of cert pay.
Mhm.
So on the grade, you're looking at just the base wage, where like streets, if we move them up, you know, they don't have that additional cert pay, but maybe that CDL is what adds them value to move up in the grade. So when I say movement, I'm saying, does it make sense to move them up one grade? So now they're getting the 2.5%, then you're moving them up a grade to a higher min and max. Does it make sense for a custodian to move them up one grade? So that maybe they're getting a 3% or 3.5% increase. I don't know what the percentage is between grades.
Yeah.
To be
email
more
me a copy
competitive.
of the 2025 pay scale?
Yeah,
Like a word version?
like a.
Yeah,
is it
just
like
like
Excel?
so I
version?
can have what the
Okay, not
current
a
rates
PDF.
are. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Oh,
Well-
I didn't know if you want to play around with it.
Yeah, we can probably give you
Oh,
an
yeah,
Excel
maybe
version.
just in case they do that.
Okay, now in that, I understand, you know what you're talking about moving up, but what does that do for people that are topped out?
It brings you to like the next closest highest. So for example, if you moved a grade and you were in step 10, that might put you at step 9 or step 8, depending on where you put somebody. So then they have more growth because they're now getting a step plus a COLA, not staying at just a COLA every year.
Yeah, your top end moves up.
Oh,
Just
so,
like it did last.
right, okay.
Yeah, so like whereas you were previously topped out, last time we created a whole new scale for you guys. Now, and then you had
Yeah, I
steps
got one step up.
to go.
So yeah, you'd give the 2.5% and then you'd place it the next closest but highest step, which could be 8, 9, 10. I don't know. It kind of just depends on wherever you're placed,
Right.
what grade you're placed in. So
You kind of took one for the team, Pat.
I've been doing that for quite a while. I was
Well,
maxed out.
I know,
50
but we
years
put
ago.
emphasis on the lower end of the scale
Right.
last year was to try to help with recruitment and things like that. So we moved the bottom more than we moved the top.
Right,
Yeah,
right, you know,
streets
and,
Last year.
I mean, streets and traffic had the
Streets we did
biggest
a,
adjustment last
streets
time.
had the one of the biggest
Yeah,
adjustments last year.
last time.
but, you know, and there, and I understood, you know, why you do that stuff, but I, you know, and this is just my own belief. But for what we are seeing, once again, I think we need something to keep the older set here because we're not getting like, the main thing that we see in our department is that CDL. There's so many guys retiring out, you know, that's had CDLs and stuff in every part of the, you know, workforce and stuff. And so there's not many people getting the CDLs nowadays and stuff, you know, so to keep things moving short of downsizing all your equipment to pickups, you know, we're gonna have to do something to keep us older set involved, you know, and in working, you know, to keep those CDLs. And I don't know any other way.
I'm gonna quote you as older set. You can't come after me for that. 'Cause I'm part of it.
Believe it or not, he's just like my older brother. We heard that for,
So in Idaho, are you guys able to train people or do they actually have to go to a school to get their CDL?
They actually have to go to, it's supposed to be a accredited
Yes.
organization to be able to, we used to train our own. That was part of the incentive for seasonals to come to work for the street department is they were trained and got their
You're the
CDL.
teacher and,
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah,
but you can't
but
do
when they
that no more.
changed the rules.
So we
Yeah,
just
so-
signed an agreement with Clarkston, right?
They're trying to work out a program where we don't have to send someone to like a Spokane trucking school for $5,000.
Oh, is there none around here?
So like they make this change, but they don't think about the smaller communities that don't have an accessible school nearby. So you can create a trainer, but then that trainer has to actually be an official trainer. And I think they're looking at trying
We're looking at doing something
to,
with basically a classroom,
with Clarkson.
taught by Clarkson, I think, and then you would have that first driving portion, right? Something like that.
These are the old.
I haven't been informed of any of this. I know that there was talk, but.
I think they're still trying to
figure
figure it out because it's also this long
We're working
process.
on
So-
that.
Yeah, Jane's been working on it, right? I think with
Yeah.
some of the
He
managers.
might be talking about.
Transit
class, I don't know.
It's been discussed in our negotiations, I don't know, going back a number of years, that, and now it just seems like it's coming to light, and that is, we have discussed in the past that guys out there with CDLs, well, we know they're valuable, we already know. But the guys are required to have a CDL in their job. Okay, it's a job requirement, that's great. But maybe in lieu of all of this, it's time to look at that CDL as a certification.
Oh,
give like
a
a
cert pay
cert
for CDL?
I'm not, we can call it something else, a CDL bonus or, I don't know. But maybe that keeps some of the young guys from coming in, getting their CDL and then leaving. Because once you get that CDL, here's $1 an hour or something. The incentive, we
Yeah,
can have,
we are trying to work on some language about obtaining your CDL through the city, and then if you leave, you have to make the determination to maybe pay back the city as cost.
I don't think that's a bad idea.
That should be. part
A
of
lot
it.
of places, yeah, it's like it
It
takes
is.
2 years.
You go to
yeah.
SWIP, you're driving with them for 2 years.
Yeah,
And if you don't, if we know this firsthand, you pay back.
Yeah.
At cities with police officers,
mhm,
they'll
Mhm.
pay your post, but if you leave, say to go
mhm.
from the city to the next first county, you're gonna pay
It's
back.
really expensive, send
Yeah.
someone a post and you pay them
Well,
overtime,
It's not
lodging.
unusual, because I know a lot of hospitals pay nurses schooling, and you have to say, I'll stay for 5 years, or I pay you back. I mean, it's not uncommon for a training like that, with the especially what CDLs are getting for training. That if they don't come into one, they have to sign something saying, yes, I will pay back.
Yeah, or,
Because how much, that's my question too, though. What's it gonna cost you? How much extra we got to pay somebody to stay once they get their CDL? Is it gonna be 50 cents? Is it gonna be $1?
well, that's why I was saying, like, when you look at the wage matrix, I'm just throwing this out there. Like, that CDL adds enough, element to lift that job itself into a new grade, to be, yes, it's not a water operator, no, it's not a wastewater operator, but maybe it lifts it in requirement, ability to obtain, maybe you move that position into a new grade to compensate for that CDL, which used to be valuable, but now it's even more valuable because of the change from the, federal.
That's a philosophical thing on the city's part. I mean, they just have to decide if it's worth it, I think. I think we all agree it's worth it. It helps with retention. I tell you,
So would you want us to bring something back to you guys that's a potential new wage matrix that shows like what we would think placement would be? Or do you guys want to?
Yeah, we can caucus on it too here.
Yeah, no, if you guys
Before
can
we
do
say
that.
anything, but
Yeah.
To do what, Nikki?
To bring back a proposal of a wage matrix, moving around some of the positions to what we think would be better placement.
I'd like to see that.
I think it would probably, be quicker and easier for you guys, cause you already got all that information, as to what it's set at now.
I mean,
Well, I
okay,
think we could work on one ourselves.
Yeah, I think you guys should also do one.
Yeah, not just depend on that.
because your wage matrix itself has some ability. Like there's some grades that don't have anything currently, or, 'cause I think like 513 is hidden.
512.
512 is hidden. So, maybe there's a little bit of movement there.
And like, there's a position on the pay scale in 511, facility maintenance laborer. That we had that position temporarily, it never even actually got added into the contract, and now we don't have it anymore.
Yeah, and like asset management needs to be removed. We no longer have an environmental program assistant. Now we have a technician that needs to be added. So we can update the titles also.
Okay.
And we're still talking about what was the backflow is now the whatever,
You're talking about Justin?
Huh?
You're talking about Justin?
Water
Yeah.
Quality and Compliance Coordinator.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to, I mean, that's the mayor's decision on whether he wants to allow new positions into the.
Well, Morgan, what did we do with you? Because didn't you have to opt to be represented or no?
Yeah, so, yeah, I asked to be represented and I wasn't at the meetings when they decided.
But your position was added, right? And you had to agree to it or ask for it, or whose decision was that?
I just had to talk to them,
Yeah.
They requested it as part of negotiations.
yeah,
Was that difficult?
no,
Jeez.
not for me.
So, I mean, do we feel like we're in a position?
So
to
is
be
that
voting?
what we would have to do then for this one then? Approach this employee and talk to them or? do
Well, it
you-
sounds like we
Yeah.
already have.
we already have,
You've talked to him.
see him every day.
Did he,
Justin, yeah, we see him every day, because he has to come out and get his truck at the water plant.
did he share anything with you that you can share with us or?
Oh, he's definitely interested in becoming, because he does, like he said, he doesn't, he has nobody under him. He did, and he has taken over what was part of his job is the backflow, or that was his back, cross connections, whatever.
As a cross connection specialist.
He's part of that, like Bill was, so basically, if you had renamed Bill Arnold's spot and gave him a couple other jobs different, yes.
He's not a
He does.
supervisor.
No,
He
he doesn't.
handles any employees
No,
underneath.
But basically, he is asked to become part of the.
Right, and he reports to the Brian Lacy, like we report to Brian Lacy. He's,
Will you guys report to Billy?
well, yeah. Yeah, you don't report to Bill.
Hmm?
He doesn't, Justin does, and he-
No, he reports directly to Brian.
Right.
So he falls
But-
under that.
yeah, so. But he does not manage anyone.
Do you want to caucus and talk about these things?
About that position?
Well, no, just about the wage matrix, the COLA, the holiday overtime and the position. Or do you want to keep going and have these for consideration on
I kind of
Thursday?
feel like we should keep going because, I feel like if we. You're gonna look at the wage matrix also, right? I mean, don't you wanna take a look at that before we come back and say we've got this all figured out?
I mean, well, it would be nice to know your guys' opinions and where you fall, because I want to keep us in the same direction, so I don't want to be going down this road while you guys are going down this road.
Okay, where is good with us caucus and districts?
You guys want
For
to
a
caucus?
second, because. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
District.
Okay, so we're gonna do these here. This is a public meeting at 8:55, so I'll record that and then let me make sure everything's ready for you up front.
So we can't both caucus at the same time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What's that?
And we can't both caucus at the same time. I mean, the meeting could be open and we can go to two different places.
Is there two different places to go?
Well, we could fit in an office.
Oh,
You guys could go to the mayor's conference and we could just fit in an office. Do you want to do that, Mayor?
Yeah, well, see if the office upstairs is open, the conference room is legal.
You just go in Nikki's office.
Yeah, whatever you guys want to do.
Let's see if the conference room is open.
So we'll just. Both.
Yeah. They just keep
Yeah.
following that.
We just.
We can
Okay,
wait for a minute.
I think Ryan went to that.
okay. We'll back to order. And we're gonna wait just a second here before we. Drainage floor right here. Drainage floor right here.
Yeah, so.
Oh, okay.
Great, so I just need to.
Like an inner or.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You won't know the intro.
Even
To you and you're like. Oh, yeah.
I live by a house on 14th. Four, so she'll go to the.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Pat, would you like us to start out or would you like to start out? Laura?
Yeah, so, yeah, we could get, the city's report of the wage scale, for us, that would be helpful.
So one more time?
The wage scale where you, you guys had said where you think adjustments could be made to try to maybe bring up some of those lower paying jobs that need higher wages.
And are you gonna do the same?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll exchange or something?
Mhm.
Okay, okay, good. But that was one of our items.
Oh. And then for the CPI discussion, we are counter proposing on that. We want to leave the minimum at the 1%, but we are requesting the max be raised to 3.5.
Okay, so Nikki, if you don't mind, it's my understanding that council has already given us direction to keep the 1 and 2.5%. So we can't move forward on that today. Beyond that.
Now, when you say move forward on that, that you need to talk to city council or it's just rejected?
Rejected. Yeah, I have to just be very direct with you. I don't think council's gonna entertain that.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't need to waste
I think in lieu of the COLA increase, we step back to, I kind of want to call it Nikki's proposal because it's not your proposal, but it's the impression I got, and that is, yeah, the thought that we make that, that difference up in wage scale changes.
A market adjustment.
Thank you. That's a simple term. I can market adjusted, yes. Along with that market adjustment, I think we need to reevaluate, not specifically CDLs as a certification, but we do have some other departments where we have certified positions, certification that require training renewals, that are not being paid right now.
Like what kind of training renewals would that be?
Specifically two guys in parks who have applicators licenses that buy all of the pesticides and herbicides for the city.
They pay for their own renewals?
No, the
Oh.
city, but they are required to maintain.
You would have it like a survey.
Have
Oh,
a
oh,
survey
okay,
added,
okay.
yes, yes. And we've, in the past, we've come to agreement on cert pay pretty easily. Just because again, it's part of having your job. Kind of like that CDL that maybe we're time to recognize now. We do have Justin in his new department, the environmental lead copper manager. He's currently carrying 2 licenses and he is not compensated for those.
Are those titled cross connect specials like 1 and
So-
2 or?
He's got a cross connection license, he's got a level 1 water license.
We still have a certified diesel, a certified gas mechanic at the shop, correct?
I don't know exactly what's up there, but I know we added.
We added those, I didn't know if that-
Well, I know
Still,
what
Nothing's
they,
changed up there.
okay.
yeah, what they get paid additional for is an emergency vehicle, going to
Yeah, thank you. They both.
And
One
that's
diesel,
new.
one gas.
Fire and-
Yeah, like one
Well, I
like.
think they all have the same,
It's like a master.
Yeah, it's,
AFC or?
but the only additional pay, because those are required
Right.
to be a technician.
I read how it broke it down into 2 different, I can't remember what.
So let me, if I can.
Yeah, master automotive or master truck.
Thank you.
So on the market adjustment, I think potentially some of that could be addressed through this pay scale, Joe, that we're gonna look at. So that may capture some of that, you know. So I would be looking at both of those as you study that, you know. And then with the search stuff, and the applicator's license, so I think we used to have, when Corky was here, Corky had his applicator's license or something, and then others worked under that license. So others were not required, and my understanding is in state law, you don't have to have the law, you just have to work under somebody's license. And so, that's a question that I'll be having when we go our way, you go yours.
Yeah.
Is if the new manager that we're looking to hire, if that person has the applicator's license, then it wouldn't be required of the workers, you know. And I think you can, any of us could go onto the website, talk to the Department of Ag and get our own applicator's license. I think that's kind of how that works. That's what I remember. And when we're talking about general, purpose, herbicides, pesticides, stuff like that, there's some or all, I don't know, that you don't need an applicator's license. So for me, I just need to be very clear on that and go take a look at that. So just tell you what my initial thoughts are.
And our understanding is that Courtney was actually working under a couple of employees' licenses.
He could have been, don't know.
That's what we've got.
And just for information, I know when we was looking into it, we had a gentleman that was going to get spray certification. His brother runs a landscaping business here in town, and he was going over his stuff and then was looking into it and stuff. And I'm not, you know, saying this law, but he kept mentioning that for somebody to work under that licensed person has to be on scene to oversee that it's being done right, you know, which to me, we were questioning that back then because, you know, Corky was never, I mean, he had 2 or 3 people spraying. How can you be in, you know, those different places overseeing that? So it might be something, you know, for you to look at, you know, as far as, cause I know people now, they see us spraying something, we could be putting mag out. And they're all up in arms because, you know, they could kill their trees or something. So they just, you know, something that might be looked into is if the person with the license has to be on scene to make sure that they're not overspraying or stuff like that there, you know.
So maybe then if I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, maybe both of us can. Then is I'd like to ask our risk manager to take a look at that. So that he probably, hopefully understands label restrictions, things like that. Because we're also gonna ask him to take a look at a safety class, prescription safety class policy. So since he kind of knows that business better, that's what we intend to do is just take this suggestion, go talk to him and see what his thoughts are on that. Because, that policy would apply citywide. It wouldn't be just for AFSCME. So we just need to study it, take a look at it and see what the proper response is to that. But, Nikki, let's ask Gene to also take a look at this. It's been a concern for me since, I first came here because there's nothing like going out and writing a ticket for somebody for not taking care of their property, only to have the city not taking care of its property, although sometimes it's not our property. It looks like our property. I get those phone calls too. But we have to at least be making an effort. So when folks contact my office, it's not a lot, but I do get the calls that I could say, hey, listen, that's not true. I know Pat's crews out there, they're doing these things, or this is not an area we maintain, but I appreciate your bringing it. Well, you know, I mean, I have to try to talk with them fairly, but if we're not doing our job, then let us have it. But then I need to understand, because I would talk to Jason Thompson and I would talk to Tim at the time, both of them saying, listen, because there was disagreement over whether it was public works or parks. It's like, I don't care who's in it. Somebody go spray the darn thing, because I can't tell people one thing and then not keep my word, because we all lose credibility. It's not just the mayor's office. We all lose credibility. So, but we need to have a better handle on that.
So this is the state of Idaho's rules for licensing. It does say, so you have to take the test for a professional applicator license. You can get an apprentice license to work under somebody else's license, but it says they must have a certified licensor or supervisor on site with them. So you, like, me as an apprentice, I can't just go to, say, Harrith and do whatever I want because Corky was back at, back at his office. Basically, I can apply by Corky's with me.
Is that specific to an applicator's license?
Yeah,
Okay.
can see it, it's on state.
State statute?
I looked it up on ChatGPT and, there's two different ones. There's a general license in which you do have to be physically present for someone else to.
State Idaho.
Yeah, and then there is also a professional commercial apprentice license, which allows limited supervision, so they don't necessarily have to be on site, but you have to have constant communication available, like, a radio or cell phone or something.
Well, that looks like it's maybe for restricted use pesticides.
That's this.
Well, because it says RUPF stuff there too.
And you're,
Oh,
and whoever is, and of course, whoever is the licensed person has to be willing to let somebody work under that.
So there's
You
kind of all
can't-
these like,
so it sounds like we need to do some research.
Yeah.
And ask questions.
Ideas.
There's
Control
criteria.
pesticides. We were
Yeah.
talking Roundup from the store.
It's just like we can have a operator in training, but he has to have he has to have a level, whatever, say, 3 or 4
Mhm.
person available at all times.
I think we need to ask them what is being applied.
But this would be more than just general purpose, right? I mean, if like Roundup, anybody can go to Home Depot and buy Roundup and go spray it.
Correct, we're talking, yeah, we're talking,
But
the heavy duty.
regulated.
yeah, pesticides is the big one.
Yeah. Okay, well,
We'll do some research,
Yeah.
yeah, we have to do some homework.
I can go to, I mean, it might be where I can go to Home Depot and buy Roundup and spray it around my house all I want. But if I'm spraying it around, say, a park where kids are gonna be playing, I probably couldn't just go.
Sometimes it changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm just saying, because then I'm affecting
No.
other people with they have to probably know the right percentage to put down, say, in a park where there's gonna be children present compared to a field where you're at 20 miles out of town.
It's a professional
Which
application.
I don't know anything about
Now,
this, so.
some chemicals you have to have a license to buy.
Right.
So.
That's where court.
Well, let's have.
License rate 240 all the time. No, that's your license.
June, yeah.
Well, it
Jane's
sounds like
resource.
there's more
Yeah.
information that's needed or.
Yeah, because I think that would be good for the cities, if you have to have more than just a general applicator's license, if it's a professional or a commercial application, here's what the rules are, then we as a city need to know what those are, and then we need to, act responsibly, so if that means somebody is in charge of that, and it happens to be an AFSCME member, then we can look at that, and also understand the rules underneath that, when you have somebody operating under that, what the responsibilities are, because that puts a lot of liability on the city. So if you've got the license and you say, yeah, I'm in charge and this and that, but you're not really in charge because you're not doing your job, then something happens to us, that would not be good either. So we just need to make sure that that's a robust system.
Okay, so with the safety glasses, we want to do our own research a little bit, talk to Jean and maybe, because we kind of feel like this might be something that's not just Union, but if we look at it citywide, how do we treat people fairly with that?
That's what I want to say, talk to you about.
Yeah.
For the health care.
Oh, okay.
So we'll talk after.
Oh, yeah, because we kind of talked about that, whether it was something that could be covered under the health plan.
Right, because I know there's a surplus usually there, which might be more feasible, so anyway.
Yeah, our restriction there is that it has to be for the good of all.
Everybody.
Like, it has to be something everybody can utilize.
I'll talk to many regions, see if they have anybody that has plans though. Because,
Well, that's under the Department of Insurance. That's not a region situation.
right, but so not everybody benefits from like you and I do prescription glasses. If there's something like that, reasonable. Up to you.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll talk to you
we can
about
do some research on that too. And then as far as like holiday, and then holidays in conjunction with call out overtime and even Sundays, we feel like we got clear direction from council, that they wanted to modify the holidays to be in alignment with other employee groups. And, when we look at what you guys have provided, there really isn't a change to what kind of currently exists, only more description. So we feel like, the holiday pay was at a council direction. We don't really have room to negotiate one way or the other. They want to see it with other employee groups.
That was a different.
Okay, on that, can we get an idea of how that, works? Because, they're scheduled, we're non-scheduled. they don't collect it at one, their paydays, they get it at the end of the year. So how, I mean, how are we gonna make it the same?
I think the same is that they get 13 paid holidays. They get paid straight time for the hours they work on a holiday. Same with non-reps. And so even though they get holidays at the end of the year, it doesn't matter. What I think we're talking about is it 2 times the pay, 1.5 times the pay? Is it 2 times the pay plus holiday pay? I think the idea is that it needs to be, like, we don't give them extra pay for Sundays because they happen to work Sunday or be called in for a Sunday. So, I mean, we proposed some initial language. You guys might want to go back and maybe relook at that, what we proposed initially. And what we had tried to do was clarify, call out pay is time and a half. Time and a half. Whether you work 40 hours, whether it's a holiday, whether it's a Sunday, it's time and a half. You're on standby time. You know that you potentially could be called in any time of that time, plus Sundays or, multiple times a day. You have a general awareness that you may have to perform work. So the fact that it's a Sunday or a Saturday or a Monday, you're on standby being told you could respond. So why does one day be a double time because you didn't know you'd be called in, but you did know you potentially could be called in? So, we try to clarify it so that, your overtime is your overtime extending your day one way or the other, or choosing to work an additional day as overtime, whereas call out time is when you're on standby and you respond, or you're called into work, and then you have your holiday pay.
One thing that kind of worries me about that whole deal is I don't know how many departments are mandatory standby, being on standby versus voluntary. And you change something like that, and then say I'm the only guy left that's
Well, then
willing.
they probably will have to make it mandatory.
That's what I'm
So
asking.
everybody will
So
have to go into rotation.
if that happens, I just wouldn't want that to happen where, say, okay, there's one person that said, okay, I'll do that. And have, on standby all the time, basically. That's just one of my concerns with that.
Well, and I think the difference between overtime and standby is, a call out versus overtime is the call out is anticipated. They're also compensated,
Mhm.
right? The overtime employee is not compensated. It's a disruption to their normal schedule, whereas the call out person, okay, I'm on call, I'm getting compensated at the call out or at the standby rate, right? With the anticipation that I may have to go to work at inconvenience times.
As you probably know, like distribution, they have one guy on call, right? But, so, say Aaron gets called out. It's a water line break. He's already on standby, yeah, he's good. But now they're calling out 3 other guys that do not have to report. Are they just gonna get?
They would get the call out
The
pay.
call out
No,
pay.
but they get time and a half,
They
or
get time and a half.
or
call-out
they
pay.
get double time on a holiday and a Sunday, or just time and a half?
Just time and a half.
So
But if it also happens to be a holiday, they also get holiday pay. So they would
The
technically
holiday
be
pay
getting,
was,
You're
they get
getting
paid
that.
whether they're home or not, for
Right.
holiday pay.
yeah.
So
So if you're getting call out
it's
pay
not
on
a
a
call out,
holiday.
they're not getting call out pay. They're not getting any, so the guy that was on standby, he's getting a standby play
Mhm.
and time and a half to be out there.
If he gets called in,
Yeah,
yes.
but if he tries calling other people in, they're just gonna get time and a half, nothing else,
Well, if it's correct, if it's a Saturday,
or Sunday, say
If-
Sunday.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah. If it's a holiday, they would also get holiday pay
So is the,
and time and a half,
and so is the person that is on standby,
yes,
but he's getting standby pay also.
yes.
See what I'm saying? You're paying
Everybody.
one guy, everybody's
Everybody's
getting paid
holiday.
different at that time.
Yeah, everyone's getting holiday pay. Anyone that gets called in gets time and a half call in.
Whether you're on standby pay or not.
No, but then you got one person that's making different that day than everybody else.
Because
They're
they
getting
were the ones
standby
on
pay.
standby.
Right. And those other people you call do not have to come in. You have a water break like you had at 21st Street a few years ago. They do not have to come in. We're gonna find out.
That's where the
really
damage is
soon that a lot
gonna
of
be.
people
People are not going to report to work
In an emergency.
voluntarily for time and a half on Sunday, or a major snowstorm, stuff like that. They're not gonna show up, because they don't have to. they're not being compensated to
They are.
do that.
They're getting time and a half.
It's different. I'm just telling you all the situations that you're gonna hear. 'Cause we've
So
already
it would
heard.
make a difference for them to get 1/2 extra pay. For that
I'm saying,
inconvenience.
I'm,
Yep.
It always has.
you know,
But
yeah,
that person who's on standby only gets the time and a half. When
And
you
the
start
standby.
adding all these complexities, that's where
That's where
payroll
I
sits at a time card, it's like, I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know, is that time and a half, is that double time, is that holiday pay, is that triple time, is it 2 times regular rate? You muddle that up,
Yeah,
and so
I
that's
thought
why,
that's why we had, sorry.
and so that's why it's these clear, defined, alternatively, we could just say you don't earn call out time until you've worked 40 hours. We're trying to say anytime, whether you've had a holiday in that week, whether you haven't worked 40 hours, you're getting time and a half. But like I said, alternatively, we could just say, well, you get call out once you've met your 40 hours of work.
Right, and that's what,
So I
We're-
feel like we're kind of
we're-
trying to
we're-
give a little and say,
right,
and
but,
then apply that to everyone else. Like
Right.
those supervisors who also are on standby time and get call out, they will get time and a half and not have to work their 40 hours to get time and a half. We're treating this group and that group the same for the same work, for being on standby and getting call out. And whether it be a holiday or Sunday or whatever day.
right,
So our
And-
direction was to make it like other employee groups, and so we're trying to find these abilities to have that crossover into these Billy, John, Greaser, people who used to be in your union, who are now
Right, right.
supervising union people,
right,
who are giving themselves into that rotation so that these employees aren't constantly on rotation. Nate Smith, he doesn't get any extra pay for being on rotation, but he doesn't. We can't change that for him, but we can change that for Kevin, who's in rotation, because there's only 1 or 2 guys in collections who can be on standby. So, I
right.
mean,
Oh, no,
we're
no.
consciously trying to keep that fairness in alignment with other employee groups. So we're-
Okay, just a minute, can I?
Go ahead.
Okay, now, and I'm hearing this, pretty much on everything. You guys are saying, okay, this is what you are being given or being told by council. This is what you can do, this is what you can't do, and everything. This is what we are hearing from our people. Okay, if we're not going to be compensated fairly as we see it, then we just don't come out on these emergencies. See, so, you guys have yours coming from your
So you
side,
would
we've
just
got
let your
ours.
AFSCME member, who happens to be on standby, deal with this all by themselves.
Not
The
us
city,
personally.
the city's,
Personally,
the
what we
city
hear.
is making
I mean,
that.
Go say you.
How is the
a
city,
person.
no, I'm saying, you're saying if somebody's on rotation and there's a water break,
Mhm.
and they call people, they're like, no, I'm not getting that extra half
No,
my time, so I'm not gonna come out to help you, you're all on your own. I mean, that's,
a
That's
lot of us
what I
wouldn't
hear.
do that, right?
well, right.
But the
A
thing
lot
of
of
it is, a
them-
lot
And
of
then
us
if
here
people
have been
don't
here
wanna
for
volunteer
years.
to be rotation, then maybe that's when it could become mandatory. If there's only 1 person at water distribution, maybe everybody.
Well,
becomes
yeah, but
mandatory.
that's
No,
that's
yeah.
just standby.
One person.
We're
One
talking
person.
if you need to call the crew, say there's a major snowstorm. That one person on call can't take care of all the streets. So you're,
Well, but you're also, maybe that's a bad example though, because you're also being compensated to be on that on-call list.
You have winter pay.
right, but it is not required to be 24 hours.
If you're on that list and being paid to be on that list, you're expected
Right,
to.
that's not what
respond.
he's saying.
Yeah.
That's
There's
why
only
you're
one
being
guy on call.
compensated.
All loose and it's a snowstorm, he can't take care of all, is what he's saying.
Well, they're all on this list.
But half
to be
the
able
crew,
to
half of
respond.
the streets crew is on
I don't know how
a
that
storm.
works.
They're
I'm
on,
just saying,
they're
so that
on
might
a
be a bad
list
example.
with the
Yeah.
ability to
Well, yeah, I
respond,
can
and they
see
all
what you
get
mean by that.
compensated extra pay for the winter, whether it snows or doesn't snow.
That's what we had last time.
And that was something
Yeah,
that was brought up by
that's-
council that was.
And that is that scenario,
Yeah.
so,
I thought
but
that was to
but,
get rid of
yeah.
shift differential.
Yeah, that was to replace shift
Yeah.
differential basically
Yeah.
for working.
I think
Having
that
to
was-
respond.
But that-
I
on-call
agree, maybe that
list.
isn't necessarily.
It is.
a good
Well,
example.
It is, because those are, yeah.
that's not a great example.
No, no,
We understand the example you're making. And what you said, are we gonna let our coworker out there suffer by themselves? I think that's probably up to every individual employee to decide that. I know the individual employees who would decide that.
Well, it just
But-
seems like it would be part of your position to need to respond to a water break. You have a person on call who's trying to address issues, but if at some point they can't because there's a water break, like on May and 21st, it just seems like part of your job is that you may have to respond on off hours. The job doesn't say only when you want to.
No,
It
you're-
says
you're
when
totally-
there's a water
you're
break,
totally
or there's a
correct.
reservoir break, or
Totally
there's whatever.
correct, Nikki, but
Yeah.
you know what? Up until right now, we've always known there was inherent compensation, but yeah, show up, I'll work an extra 8 hours because I'm getting compensated for it.
But-
And now we want to whittle that down and expect the same level of employee response?
Well, but you're
So-
all being called out. That person's on standby pay. That standby pay is something different.
They would
That's just to
get that
be, hold the
regardless.
phone, to not drink, to be
Right.
within 30 minutes. There's
That's-
restrictions to
No,
that they're being.
no,
That's not my point I'm making. I
But
understand
all of
that.
those people are being called out.
Right, you just
So
said
you
it.
give them all time and a half,
What if,
not 5 of them get double time and 1 gets time and a half. And then how do you properly put that on a time card for payroll to understand that? You have all these different levels of you get this on this day at this time and not on this day at this time, but this person gets this and this person gets this. You convolute and conflict it. And that's where we end up with things like Thanksgiving and Christmas, where it just went. We just kind of put our hands up in the air and said, well, I guess we have to trust what they put in there because
Well,
the
no,
way we read it and the way they see it are 2 different things.
okay,
You know what I
but you and
mean?
I have worked for the city for about the same amount of
Mhm.
right, give or take a couple months. Yeah, I've been around here for the same amount of time. And this compensation, the way it's written, has never been a problem until what?
It's always been misunderstood. I mean, as far as I
I've never
know,
heard that. I've never heard that on my end.
the way that the city looked at it, anyway, I comment, I
like,
digress.
so when so Frank called me and we're doing it your way, yeah, I'd go help them. Unless, like you just said, I've been drinking.
Mhm.
If I have got off work, had a hard day or whatever, and I'm had a beer, I will not come in then, of
Right.
course, right?
You're unable to respond.
yeah.
Mhm.
But, I mean, there's not, unfortunately, you could say, you can't do it at the city, you could say, we're gonna give you guys all $1,000 bonus this year, after
Mhm.
never getting a bonus. Most of the people would be like, that's great, that's awesome. You'd have other people that say, $1,000, why didn't they give us 2? I'm just saying, you're always gonna have, yeah, most of us would respond to help your coworker,
Right.
because you want them to respond to help you. But there is a few in the group, and I guess if you have people constantly saying, no, they're not gonna come out, no, they're not gonna come out, then that's a bigger issue, right? I'd say,
I mean, I think that you always have that issue.
right,
I mean, that would
Somebody
just
could be at home
But-
drinking and not be able to come out,
yeah,
whether it's time and a half or double time.
right.
Or you're gonna have people who don't wanna respond because they don't wanna respond.
I mean,
Well, I think
just me, I don't know
You
when,
bring up the confusion of getting paid twice the rate of pay or 1.5 times the rate of pay. So the call out guy is getting compensated to sit by his phone. Fair enough, right? We all agree on that. He gets called first, right? If it happens to be a recognized city holiday or a Sunday, that call out is twice the rate of pay as it reads now. If he calls Chris and I in to help out and it's a Sunday, we come in at the exact same rate that he was. He's compensated because he was the first to respond. He's now trying to scurry the crew together. It's his job. He's on call and called out.
Yeah.
The guys who respond to help him, who were never scheduled, weren't weren't getting compensated to be on standby. We all say it every weekend, hey, I'll be in town if you need, if anything comes up. We always say that. We aren't getting compensated. One guy is. That one guy is getting compensated to sit by the phone and get the ball rolled. We know that. Your husband's in that position. We're in that position. It happens. What's that?
I'm not,
No,
I'm not here to talk about that.
but what I'm saying is that call out person he has an obligation. And that is to get out there, respond, and then try to rally the troops. I don't think there's a difference between how they're paid as far as payroll goes. If it's Sunday and everybody responded, that's their rate of pay. The one guy who gets compensated a little more was the guy who had to initiate that because he was on call. I don't see why that is so confusing.
Well, I mean, we went rounds about this as well, is that, you know, your contract describes a holiday as a standard workday. It doesn't describe it as a 24-hour period. That's something you guys determined holiday would be, was a 24-hour period. So we've been rounds about this
No,
before,
I
because
agree.
that's not how,
And we
see
talked
it,
about
if it's a
cleaning up the
standard workday.
language, is what you and I talked about
Right.
before negotiating. We just need to clean up the language so it's not confusing to payroll. We don't disagree.
Not change anything, just change the wording.
Change the word.
Yeah, but our direction from council was to align your holidays with other employee groups. They're not getting 2 times the regular rate of pay plus holiday because it's a Sunday or it's a holiday. And so we're just trying to follow the direction we were provided by council.
I totally
And so you
understand.
guys have this idea and concept of what you want. You want to keep it exactly the same, just clarify it so payroll understands. But we were given direction, 3 specific things, one of which was aligning holidays with other employee groups. And you guys happen to have overtime and call out that kind of intercedes with that holiday, right? You got these 3 different sections. And so we're happy to talk about call out and overtime in that capacity because it's connected to holiday.
Right. But
And
you're also
so-
comparing work groups that don't ever work a holiday versus work groups who always work holidays.
And I
So
think
that,
Jennifer,
that,
But that's not true. We have non-reps who are in rotation on holidays. They choose to be in rotation.
okay,
You have people who work on Sundays and who may be called into SWAT or maybe called back for a fire. You know what I mean? It's not the same, but it's similar.
well,
And so how are we treating holidays for other employee groups? They don't get more than straight time and holiday pay, right? They don't get. So we're just trying to work through that language, and maybe we won't, it sounds like we won't come to that today.
can I say something on
But
that?
that's the direction I was given, is that that's what city council has told us, so that's what we're trying to align it to.
Well,
And same with call out pay, we're updating the personnel policy. I'd like to come to a conclusion with call out pay. So I can update the personnel policy so those non-reps are receiving the same compensation. So that when they're performing the same work in a standby for the water and wastewater and treatment plants, they're being looked at the same as their call out pay. One's not getting more than the other, you know what I mean? So right now, it doesn't define whether you have to work 40 hours to get call out time. So they may not earn the time and a half that you guys are otherwise earning double time for. So those are the type of things we're trying to find the consistency and the fairness for all. And I get from your guys' standpoint that you wouldn't want to lose double time on a Sunday or a holiday because that's a nice advantage for you.
well, it's not an
That's not-
advantage, it's proper compensation. You might call it an advantage, but to those of us who have to work holidays, it's,
I think
I think-
our view is it's compensation they're currently receiving that is being pulled back. So in order for the group to pull that back, what else can be given to replace that?
So if that's the question, then that's
I say
what
something real quick.
needs to be asked.
Well,
Yeah,
you
Chris has been
say-
trying to talk for
Thank you.
a while.
Well, so, and I think, I mean, I understand, I'm trying to make it fair for everybody, but
Yeah.
Jennifer herself sat there the other day and said, no matter how we try, there's no way we can make everything equal for everybody, everything the same for everybody.
Well, and I think she's
And-
speaking about the opposite group,
I'm
not
just
about
saying,
the other employee groups.
But she said there's no way we can make it. If you wanna make it even for everybody, I mean, I remember before Mayor Johnson was here in negotiations, stuff that got brought up about fire and police, we were told specifically, fire and police are separate from everybody else.
Well, they have,
But
you
in-
each have unique things
I-
about your group. I'm sorry,
I'm
go ahead. I
And
think we're coming through.
Okay, I'm just saying, we were told all the time, police is, you know, their own. Fire is their own. That's why we have separate unions. Will never be the same. But then, just now, one of your examples was how police and fire, you know, what they're getting is straight time. You see what I'm saying? So that's my question. So are we gonna try to make everybody the same?
I think both can be true. I think you can have your own unique things about your group and your union that may differ from others, but I think you can also have consistency and same things, even though you're different. They work a 24-hour shift, you don't, right? There are things that will be unique to them that you can't align because you guys don't work 24-hour shifts, but when it comes to the treatment and payment of holiday, vacation, sick leave, there's other ways to create fairness amongst all employee groups. That's my saying.
You
I don't know,
call it-
I'm not speaking for the rest of my group. I'm just saying 2 things can be true.
So you're calling it unique, which is another word for different.
Call
Not
it
the
different.
same.
They
They
can
can
be
be the
different
same.
and they can be the same.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you're kind of contradicting yourself when you say you want everybody to be the same, and you're using police and fire,
Mhm.
but now you're saying they're unique.
I also used water and wastewater
Right.
supervisors. I also used other employee groups.
Right.
I think what she's trying to say is like, where we can get you guys the same, we want to and we need to. Yes, there will be things where that can't be always the same,
Right.
but where those opportunities lie,
Mhm.
that's where we need to try to get everyone.
Right. Two
And
things
so
can be
things
true.
like
Why
sick leave,
does the
holiday,
same
vacation.
always mean this? It never means this. Let's elevate everybody. So I remember when the non-representatives, when council was toying with no cost of living, and our union was specifically brought up that, hey, the union has negotiated 2% cost of living and it saved everybody. Everybody got a cost of living when the council wanted to nix it. And we were used as an example. And the council said, well, that would be more fair. It would be. And when we say, oh, we want everybody to be the same, it always seems like we're down here, let's get everybody the same. Well, we're here to elevate. And it's happened. It's happened. The union negotiated 2%. Okay, let's keep it fair. All non-rep will get 2%. You guys know you're in that group.
I mean,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but I think in this situation, everybody else is here and you guys are up here. And to try to bring everybody up would probably be unaffordable. If we started giving,
We aren't doing anything, I mean.
if we started
we
giving
aren't asking
police
for anything
triple
more.
pay on holidays.
We're just asking to maintain. We aren't asking for anything more. How is it getting more? I mean, it's up to the city if they want to make everybody else, I mean, that'd be ideal for us. Is bring everybody, elevate everybody else, that'd be great. Cost of living, perfect, everybody should get a 2%, that's only fair, not just our group. So right now, we aren't asking for anything more, we're just saying, let's clean up some language and we're just asking for the same.
Well, and I guess, like Nikki said, we can only go off what council directed us.
Do we?
So the language that I think we proposed initially is the language we have to stand by.
I mean, there's just an anomaly between employee groups. And the direction was that they should be getting compensated. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're gonna resolve it.
No, and
And
I mean,
we know how many employees are actually called in and compensated at those rates on those holidays, like for the past year or couple of years, like, is this each holiday, there may be one person or two, or is it even that high, or does it happen every holiday?
I don't know.
I mean, police
Police
and fire fully staffed every holiday.
I meant for this group.
Oh,
I'm
for
sorry.
this group,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know wastewater is one person.
There's
I mean,
only one
wastewater-
person.
Water treatment plant in the summer is 2 people.
Or
Yeah.
are you asking that, or how many times on a holiday does somebody get called in? Is that what you're asking?
Kind of both, just
Yeah.
curious, if it's
How much?
each holiday, there's only 3 AFSCME union employees scheduled on a holiday to work, so it's 3 people's wages. And then over the last couple of years, over all the holidays, maybe people have only been called in for emergencies 2 times. I'm just curious.
It wasn't 1 or 2 people last Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mean, there was even one Christmas where they called 5 times. Not the same problem, So,
Yeah, I mean, that just kind of adds, I think, to council's agenda or goal is that we really can't, we can't have our one payroll person spending 10 hours in a week trying to figure out one person's pay. It sets her behind, it sets her department behind, it sets us behind in getting
Can
benefit
I
payments
get a copy
processed.
of how payroll is, like, what the time card looks like, how it's forwarded to payroll, so I can understand that process, that confusion that you say there is, so I can see that for myself.
That's probably an Amy question.
Well, I think one of these guys could probably show you their ESS.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And
not
they can go back to
electronic.
prior payroll.
I mean, you know people that have been problems on Thanksgiving, Christmas.
I have to go to another meeting, I apologize. 'cause I
Yeah,
have
the
to take it from
memorials.
Coeur d'Alene that trip down. Oh, yeah, the police memorials at 10.
Yeah.
I apologize, but I
That's
have to
great.
save my schedule.
That's. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Sorry. Thank you.
I just.
We're probably adjourning, so.
Yeah, we're adjourned.